Executive Officer and Chief Business Development Officer at SBM Bank. We understand the banking sector, actually lots of banks are investing in internet-based platforms. For your bank, how have you managed to weather this storm of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Just as you mentioned, what other banks are doing, at SBM we did have to move into this space. Lucky enough, by the time COVID was coming around in March last year, we already had our platform up and running, and so we did migrate a lot of our transactions out of the banking hall into the digital channels. And right now I can say about 18% of our transactions are through the branch network, and the rest, about 82%, are of the digital platform. So it's a trend that is the world over, and SBM has not been left behind in this regard.
Doing online transactions and, just a handful going to the brick and mortar. And we saw last year you closed down 4 branches. Is this a trend that's going to continue for this year?
No, by the way, we did give an explanation as to the reasons why we closed the branches. There were actually 5. Mm-hmm. You may have realized that out of the heritage, we did acquisition of assets of 2 banks. That's Fidelity Commercial Bank and also what was Chase Bank. What we realized at some point, we had branches that were in close proximity with each other. And of course, it wasn't working for us to have 2 branches in the same location. And in that regard, we had to do some rationalization. Where the branches were close, we had to maintain one and close the other. So that was the reason why we did close the branches.
Okay, so it wasn't necessarily the move that we've seen, with more dependency on the online-backed platforms. People are finding the brick-and-mortar branches less and less, actually in terms even of cost. When it comes to cost cutting, people are rushing towards closing down branches and just focusing on online. But thank you for that explanation. So the issue now is, moving forward, for the banking sector, now there is a focus on e-banking, electronic banking. For the client, especially for your Kenyan client as SBM, what other measures are you taking to make sure that the client is well positioned to stick to you as a bank?
Okay, as I said at the beginning, we have revamped our digital networks, which falls in place in terms of the clients being able to do their transactions from the comfort of their offices or from the comfort of their homes if they're using mobile banking. So we are in that space by and large. And so for all our corporate clients, we have the internet banking, which is working very well for them. For our retail clients, we have our mobile banking platform that is working very well on that. And in terms of other channels, we also have a very active cards product that helps our clients both in country and outside the country. So we've moved by and large into that stage. And as I said before, about 82% of our transactions are now on the alternate channels.
Okay.
Beyond that, we realized that at some point, our clients had challenges last year when COVID came through, and we had to put in place various initiatives that would help them go over the COVID watershed.
Definitely. And we saw lots of banks restructure their loan book. Now we are entering into a new phase of recovery. For you as a bank, especially the issue of credit, giving out credit to one of the key sectors in the country is SMEs, and we've never had enough of credit supplies to SMEs. As a bank, is there any intentional effort to make sure that you are helping fill this gap?
Yes, indeed, SME remains a very key sector for us because, again, as you may realize, in the Kenyan space, the number of SMEs are more than the corporate the corporate clients you can find around here. And this constitutes a significant part of our economic activity as Kenya. And therefore, SBM as a bank, we are playing in that space very well. If you look at our heritage, the entity here is a subsidiary of a government institution. And therefore, any initiatives that go towards helping the growth of economic activity in our country is one of the things that we do. We have a very dedicated team that is dealing with the SME space, and we have products that are helping the SMEs. Just to mention a few, during the at the advent of COVID last year, we realized there are a number of SMEs that had their cash flows interrupted because of the lockdown measures that the government put in place just to contain the COVID pandemic. In this regard, for those who closed their outfits, we gave them some loan repayment holidays, which helped them until when they reopened. There are those who actually had reduced cash flows. For them, we had to offer restructures, and also we gave a moratorium for those who were doing projects that had to stall because of the social distancing protocols. Beyond that, during the COVID environment, there are those who had opportunities for supply of one thing or another. What we did, we had to give them temporary overdrafts to be able to take on those opportunities that arose during the COVID.
All right.
And in that light, we did help those who had the opportunities. And for those who had challenges, we gave them accommodation. Now, accommodation was between 6 months and 12 months. And even after that, there are those who have come to request for an extension of that, and we've accommodated them because, again, we understand that they need our hand to survive this COVID pandemic. Definitely,
it's important. Looking at the bottom line, apart from the restructuring of loans, we've seen some banks have made profit over this period. The banking sector in general, some of them have made profits. We've seen reliance on making money on the FX side. For you as SBM, how do your financials look like as you speak?
Okay, for last year, we still haven't published our financials, which will be done pretty shortly. But just to mention, as you rightfully mentioned, the impact of COVID was severe on most banks. What has happened is some banks may not report losses, but they will report reduced profitability. So looking at where we stand in the situations of where banks are reporting reduced profitability, but not in the red, yes.
All right. That is definitely very important. And you've mentioned a myriad of ways that we've seen the bank change. You've mentioned the bigger focus on going online. There's been the acquisitions that you mentioned that necessitated the closure of some of the branches due to proximity, that being the reason behind it. Of all these changes, I mean, what are some of the biggest lessons that have come out for you as a bank from this pandemic period?
Okay, thank you for that. The pandemic has come up with a number of lessons that we have to learn. First lesson for us has been that nothing is assured. I remember last year when we started the year, we were very robust for the first quarter of the year from January to March. But with the announcement of the advent of COVID, everything changed at that time. So all the plans that we had put in place, we had to rethink and rejig quickly enough and readapt to the new circumstances. So the second lesson that the COVID has taught us is largely we have to be ready to be adaptive to the changes in the business environment, which we did. And in that regard, we had to change our strategies because COVID changed the way we work. COVID changed the business environment. As you may realize, the economy had a large hit where there was slowdown virtually in everything. And what we realized is that some sectors came up back much faster in Q3 and Q4 than others. And even within the COVID environment, there are some sectors that realized some growth. So we had to react quickly and adjust ourselves to support those who had opportunities in terms of growth, and those who are going through difficulties in cash flows, we had to look at mechanisms that would help them not to default.
Definitely. Thank you very much, sir.
Above that, what we also saw that we had to adopt a way of our staff working where normally we would have everyone in the office. We had to change that.
Okay.
So we had half of the people working from home, half of the people in the office.
All right.
So the agility to be able to change fast and rejig your strategies is critical.
Definitely. Adaptability is key to survival. Thank you very much, sir, for taking time to speak to us on what is happening in